Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports right here on Instagram, and the KeyOnMillions.co. Here is my channel, and I'm going to show you all my media feed. Well, here's my dashboard. Here is my media feed. Here is my merchandise. We just rolled out new merchandise last month. Here is our new logo for our clothes on millions.co. And here is my profile so that you all know it is me. Here is my profile so that you will know it's me. And now, let's get down to the nitty gritty in the NBA. So, we only have 10 more days left in the NBA regular season. And last night we had 5 games that were on the NBA slate last night. And all 5 of these games weren't close, but they dominated the TV ratings last night. And we all know that even though that the NBA they have a ratings problem, the playoffs they always come up and increase the ratings. So for the Phoenix Suns and the Charlotte Hornets that I am going to start off with, let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to go to the standings because I know that the standings have fluctuated from last night to this morning. As you can see in the East, the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, they clinched the playoff berth. You see the Charlotte Hornets, they were at 10 yesterday, and now they are at number 8. The Philadelphia 76ers are at 6. So now, one thing that I can see with the Charlotte Hornets is they are a young up-and-coming team. We already know that. But their big three is LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knippel. And as you can see, when it comes to their statistics last night, Brandon Miller, 17 points. LaMelo Ball, 15 points. Con Knippel, 20 points. All of them, they balance each other out. And that is what exactly the Charlotte Hornets need. Now, we all know that the Charlotte Hornets, they don't get many nationally televised games, but if the Charlotte Hornets make the playoffs, every game that they are going to play in the playoffs will be nationally televised. And I believe that this would be a spark and a great move for the Charlotte Hornets because we all know the Charlotte Hornets the past few years they have been a work in progress. Now it seems like they're taking that next step, and also being in the play-in tournament conversation is a big step. Making it to the playoffs is another step, and let's see if they can find a way to upset their opponent in the playoffs. That would be a huge step. That would show everybody in the NBA, me included, and all of our journalists that okay, we have to watch out for the Charlotte Hornets because Charlotte Hornets, they are not a pushover. As of right now, we're starting to see flashes of that, but we always say that legacies are made in the playoffs. Even though it's a cliche, it is true. What will the team do in the playoffs? And for the Phoenix Suns, I want to get to the Phoenix Suns. Now, when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, the head coach, he's not on the hot seat, but when you have all of this star talent within 1 to 2 years, they expect you to make some hay when it comes to all of the star talent that you have. And even though this is the head coach first season for the Suns, next season, all of the pressure is going to be on him. All of it. Now, there are some more coaches that are in the NBA that are reportedly on the hot seat, and I will get to them at a later date. But the head coach for the Phoenix Suns, first season, I mean, I mean, they're just above water, 7 games above 500. Everybody expected for them to have at least a few more wins. And basically, nobody expected them to have problems with the Charlotte Hornets coming into the season. But we all know that the start of the season to the end of the season, two completely different teams. And we see where bench production, and I've always harped on bench production when it comes to the Suns. Suns, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. This is a bold take, but this is the truth. Suns, they gonna get swept in the first round of the playoffs. The best case scenario for the Suns right now is play-in tournament win and a first round loss. And the worst case scenario is the Suns, they lose in the play-in tournament. That is the worst case scenario. So they don't have too much of a gray area because right now the Suns, they are seventh, seventh in the seventh in the West, and it's looking like that the Phoenix Suns, they are going to stay seventh in the West because everybody that's below the Suns are in the play-in tournament. And you have Minnesota and Phoenix, the only two teams in the West that don't have a playoff spot clinched and sold up. So when we get to the Phoenix Suns, as far as efficiency, I'm going to go to efficiency throughout the game for the Suns and the Hornets. As you can see, Hornets, they shot over 50% from the floor. 3-point percentage, 37%. They made more threes and they took more threes. So free throw percentage, 87%, 13 of 15 for the Hornets. Offensive rebounds, +2 for Charlotte. Defensive rebounds, this is where the Hornets, one of the categories where the Hornets won and they pretty much took advantage. Defensive rebounds, +14. Steals, +3. Blocks, +1. Total turnovers. Now they had the same amount of turnovers, but it did not hurt them. It didn't. It did not hurt the Charlotte Hornets with those turnovers. Fast break points, +9 for the Charlotte Hornets. Points in the paint, +10 for the Charlotte Hornets. Largest lead of the game for the Phoenix Suns was 10, and the largest lead for the Charlotte Hornets was 21. The Charlotte Hornets, they are no slouch, America. We need to start looking at them. And I believe the Charlotte Hornets, they need more national attention. I'm going to just go ahead and say it. We got to start putting the Charlotte Hornets on a nationally televised games in these prime time slots. Going in the next season, the Charlotte Hornets, they got to be in some prime time slots because I like what I'm seeing from LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knueppel. That's the big three for the Charlotte Hornets. And that's this big three for the Charlotte Hornets. They are going to cause problems years into the future when it comes to this team. So hopefully that these three players, they are able to stay together because the Hornets, they are going to be one of those teams that are a diamond in the rough, that you don't expect anything from them. And then all of a sudden, when you don't expect anything from them, they come out of nowhere and shock everybody. But that's all I have to say for the Phoenix Suns and the Charlotte Hornets. I'm going to show you all a few highlights. Before, it was very respectful, and pretty much the Hornets, they were down most of the first half. 3-point shot from one of their 3-point specialists. And then we get to the point in the third quarter where it started to become a blowout. You see the Hornets, they're up by 11 with 2 minutes left in the third. As we get to the minute and a half mark of the third quarter, pretty much This is where the Hornets, they started to pull away. They were up by 13, now up by 14. And then here's Con Knipple for a three of his 23 points. And it was pretty much, a one-sided affair. Here's one more highlight for everybody who didn't watch. Knipple to the drive down, and that was pretty much game. And it ended up being a 127 to 107 thumping of the Phoenix Suns and a blowout. And one thing that I can say is that the one team that is in the play-in tournament for the Eastern Conference, the hottest team that's in the play-in tournament bracket for the Eastern Conference, is the Charlotte Hornets. And I do believe that whoever plays the Charlotte Hornets in the play-in tournament, they are going to have trouble on their hands. They are. So that's all I got to say about the first matchup. The second matchup was the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Detroit Pistons. Detroit Pistons, score by committee. That's all I got to say. It's a score by committee. Minnesota Timberwolves, let's get into it. Julius Randle, 27 points in 35 minutes. Rudy Gobert, 6 points in 27 minutes. Mike Conley Jr., 14 points in 22 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, 5 points in 30 minutes. Ayo Dosunmu, 19 points in 33 minutes. Kyle Anderson, 2 points in 26 minutes. Naz Reid, 19 points in 31 minutes. Terrence Shannon Jr., 10 points in 18 minutes. Bones Highland, 6 points in 19 minutes. Joe Ingles, Julian Phillips, Joan Beringer, Jalen Clark did not play because of coach's decision. Now for the Detroit Pistons. Tobias Harris, 2 points in 6 minutes. Not good at all. He needed to have more time. Duncan Robinson, 15 points in 29 minutes. Jalen Duren, 22 points in 36 minutes. Azur Thompson, 7 points in 31 minutes. Dennis Jenkins, 26 points in 37 minutes. Bench production for the Pistons. Paul Reed, 4 points in 16 minutes. Ronald Holland II, 8 points in 16 minutes. Javonte Green, 8 points in 27 minutes. Caris LeVert, 7 points in 14 minutes. Kevin Huerter, 12 points in 22 minutes. Marcus Sauser, 2 points in 8 minutes. Tulu Smith and Wendell Moore Jr. did not play because of coach's decision. Now for the Detroit Pistons, I've got to congratulate the Detroit Pistons. They are still winning without Cade Cunningham at the helm. But this is just the regular season. I believe that the Pistons, they would fare well against a team that is short-handed, because the Pistons, they are short-handed too. But if the Pistons get into if they get into a tussle match with the teams that are at the bottom of the East, mainly, one thing that I can see is I could see a series between the Detroit Pistons and the Charlotte Hornets being a knockout, drag-out fight. And dare I say, it possibly goes to 7 games and one team is going to be pushed to the brink of elimination. That is what I see, and I'm pretty sure that is what the NBA wants. But are we going to get it as NBA spectators and the fans out here? Because Detroit Pistons and the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to tell y'all something. That is a dream first round scenario. You got Jalen Duren, you got Tobias Harris against LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knipple. That is a big 2 for the Detroit Pistons and a big 3 for the Charlotte Hornets. Like I said, a young up and coming team. You have the third youngest team and the second youngest team in the NBA in the Charlotte Hornets and the Detroit Pistons. So, like I said, playoff inexperience with the Charlotte Hornets, and you got a little to no playoff experience with the Detroit Pistons. Outside of last year, none of these guys know what going deeper and deeper into the playoffs, what that all entails. So, one thing that I can say about the Detroit Pistons is they're doing great. They still have a lead, and they are going to have they don't have home court throughout the Eastern Conference just yet, but I believe with 3 more wins and the Celtics, they lose 2 out of their next 3, then the Detroit Pistons, will have the Eastern Conference home court throughout the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Now, let's get to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota Timberwolves, one of those teams that, we have so many high hopes for them. We thought that the Minnesota Timberwolves would be one of those top 4 teams in the Western Conference, but everything didn't pan out that way. You got Oklahoma at number 1, which nobody is surprised about that. The San Antonio Spurs at number 2. Los Angeles Lakers at number 3. Now, I'm going to get into the Los Angeles Lakers a little bit later on in the show because they suffered an evisceration last night, and it was just downright terrible what happened in OKC last night. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Denver, number 4 in the West right now. Houston, number 5 in the West right now. But like I've been telling people for the longest, when it comes to, I see people, they talking about the Lakers and they are at a possibility of losing the 3rd spot. No, they not. No, they not, because they have the tiebreaker with Denver, Houston, and Minnesota. So no matter how the season ends in these next 10 days, the Lakers, they are set in stone at 3. They are set in stone at 3 right now. So for the Minnesota Timberwolves, the first thing I can say about the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm gonna go back to the statistics of the game. Here are the statistics of the game. The first thing I can say about the Minnesota Timberwolves is the 5-year plan for this group is almost up. And the reason why I always give a sports team a 5-year plan is because I always say, and I know that y'all have been watching me for over 3 years now, so y'all already know when I talk about my 5-year plan, it could go in terms of business, where it's sports, and you can even put this in your personal life. Hey, personal life. The first year of anything that you start new, 5-year plan of you starting something new, the first year you're always going to have growing pains. Minnesota Timberwolves had growing pains. Second year, they had improvement. The third year, Minnesota, they made the playoffs with Anthony Edwards at the helm. This is back in 2022. We get to 2023. Minnesota, they make the playoffs. Then we get to 2024. They make it to the second round of the playoffs. Then we get to the past 2 years, 25 and 24. They made it to the Western Conference Finals the last 2 years. So we already at year 4. Year 4 of this regime. So if the Minnesota Timberwolves do not make it to the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, I believe that Chris Finch, I'm not gonna say that he gonna get fired, but that seat is gonna start to get real hot. I'm trying to stay off of putting him on my chopping block because he's a good coach. But if he goes through another season of playoff turmoil and not getting the Timberwolves to where they are supposed to be, which is the NBA Finals, you got to call his time and you got to call his position into question. Because this will be 4 years. We'll be going into year 5 with Anthony Edwards not being no further than the Western Conference Finals. And I always tell people the balance of power in the NBA. I'm going to tell y'all something about this. The balance of power in the NBA, there is no balance of power right now. We have not had a repeat champion in a long time. The last repeat champion we had was the Golden State Warriors in 17 and in 18. And that's almost 10 years ago. So we've went from having one team to just have a stranglehold on the NBA to having year after year after year, we don't know who it's going to be at the end. So as they like to say, this term of parity, there's a bunch of parity in the NBA. Like I said, it could be 6 or 7 teams on this list that could be winning the NBA Finals. I'm going to go down a list. Detroit, Boston, New York, Cleveland. Those are 4 teams right there in the East that could possibly win the NBA Finals. And I'm just going to go to the Western Conference. Oklahoma City, obviously, San Antonio, Los Angeles, the Lakers, Denver, probably Houston, and then you have the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's about a good 8 to 12 teams that realistically have a chance at making it to the NBA Finals, if not winning the NBA Finals. So the balance of power, the balance of power is almost like a pinball machine. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what a pinball machine is. The ball just bounces from side to side. It doesn't stick to nothing long. And that's exactly how these last 7 years in the NBA has been. Because you have one team that gets the trophy, but they haven't had. But that's that next year of them trying to repeat, it's always tough. Always tough. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves, I could see them getting to the second round, but one thing I can say is I would not be surprised if how everything that is setting up right now, I would not be surprised if the Lakers somehow win the first round series. That's if everything goes according to plan, because right now, the way it's looking, it would be the Lakers and Timberwolves in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. That's what it would look like. But all in all, we have 10 more days left, so there will be a lot of things that will be moving in both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Here are a couple of highlights before I go on over to the next game. And this started out first quarter. I always say first quarter, it doesn't have the telltale sign of how the game is going to go. But now we get to the third quarter, late third quarter, the game is tied and everything is started to be interesting. And this is where I said that the Detroit Pistons really going to take this game over with. And obviously they did. Now, the lead in this game, it never got past 10 points for either team. Never. But they were always trading shots and trading baskets, as you can see right here in these highlights. Always trading baskets. And it seemed like Williams got hurt right there, but he was able to get up and Only thing I could say about this, Timberwolves and Pistons, two scrappy teams. They are rugged. They make the games look ugly, and then they keep the games close, and then at the end they want to have a chance to win, and that's exactly what went on because as you all can see, the Timberwolves, they kept the game close. The Pistons, they had the lead in a close game, and a lot of their games for the Pistons they've won have been close games throughout the entirety of this season. And as you all can see, that is the last, and I do mean the last highlight for this game. So you all can see where Minnesota is 6, Detroit Pistons is number 1. So the next game I am going to cover is the San Antonio Spurs and the LA Clippers. America, do we have enough? Can we get enough about talking about the Clippers? No, we cannot, because the ball movement between their first 5, it is pretty much just a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece. And when you look at the Spurs, look, as far as these statistics, their starting 5, Julian Champagne, 13 points. Luke Cornett, 8 points. De'Aaron Fox, 22 points. Devon Vassell, 14 points. Stephon Castle, 20 points. And that's just in that's just in 3 quarters. Now last night, Victor Wembanyama, he didn't play. Now I believe one thing, he is not injured. He's not injured, so I believe that this was just one of those load management games in trying to get Victor Wembanyama ready for the playoffs, because we all know that even though that the Clippers, they are a play-in tournament team, you really don't have to put all your top guns out there if you are the Spurs. You really don't. And you can see with these statistics, pretty much the Spurs, they almost emptied out their entire bench last night. And when we get to the Clippers, we see where Kawhi Leonard, who is always the leading force, had 24. John Collins had 15. Derrick Jones Jr. had 4. Brook Lopez had 6. Darius Garland had 11. Then bench production, pretty much hit and miss for the Clippers. But one thing I can say about the Clippers is they fought their way back from a 16-21 start early in the season to where they are at now, a game above 500. We see the standings. The Clippers, they are in the play-in tournament. They clinched a play-in berth. Now, only thing we have to wait and see is who are the true Clippers. But like I've been saying, the Clippers, they gon' Clipper. They gon' Clipper. And what I mean by the Clippers, they are going to Clipper is, see, the Clippers, I'm gonna tell y'all this. See, the Clippers are like that shiny girlfriend that you know that she got all the potential in the world, but she don't want to wear herself out when it comes to business. And that is what I see with the Clippers. See, we already know that the Lakers, LA is pretty much a Lakers town. We already know what we're going to get with the Lakers. We know that they're going to be a play-in team, a playoff team, and we know that they are going to compete for championships year in and year out. For the Clippers, they are that one team in the West where you know they're able to compete. You know that they can get to the playoffs year after year after year. You know that they can go deep into the playoffs, second round, and they got to the Western Conference Finals just 4 years ago, but were not able to close the deal. And ever since then, it's just been playoff exit after playoff exit after playoff exit after playoff exit. And now you get to a point where you've been with the Clippers have had Kawhi Leonard for 5 years, and you've only been able to make the Western Conference Finals once. And it's only one time in your entire 50-year history, 48-year history of the Clippers, where you've made it to the Western Conference Finals. And before 2022, the Clippers, they made it out of the second round just once. Out of the first round 12 times, and lost in the second round 22 times in a 25-year span. Now, like I've always said, some people say that the Clippers are the worst ran organization in sports, and me, I am not going to go that far, but the history tells it. The history tells it, because it's been some years where the Clippers ain't even worth watching, ain't even worth putting them in a prime time slot. Really not. Ain't even worth putting them in a prime time slot. And now you see with the Clippers, they have salary cap problems. They gonna have some salary cap problems going into the off season. And when we get to September and October, they gonna have some salary cap problems there. Because most of these guys, the Clippers, they are the oldest team in the NBA. They are the oldest team in the NBA, and it's gotten to that point where the Clippers, they should have been done with this group 2 years ago. Should have been done with this group 2 years ago, because Paul George was there. Now he's in Philadelphia. Kawhi Leonard, he's been in and out of the lineup. And it just seems like you got decent players, but they really can't take over a game like you know that they should. And outside at the start of the season, we all know what the Clippers were dealing with. They were dealing with a bunch of turmoil. You had Chris Paul and all of that fiasco nonsense, and I'm not going to bore you all with that. But the Clippers are a second-class organization. I'm going to say it again. The Clippers will always be a second-class organization when it comes to the NBA. When it comes to the NBA. So, the Spurs, first-class organization. And I keep on telling people, I would not be surprised if the Spurs are in the Western Conference Finals and facing against the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't see that. I would not be surprised if that happens. So before I get on to the next game, I'm going to show you all a couple of highlights, and for basically the first quarter of this game, and then it was pretty much one-sided. It was pretty much one-sided throughout the entirety of this game. Now we're going to get to the third quarter. Fast forward to the third quarter, and you can see the Spurs, they are starting to build a lead. They are up by 21 at this point with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. And the Clippers, they are trying to make a run at it. But in the end, the Spurs were just too much. They were up. The Spurs are up by 20. Make it 23 at this point in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left in the game. And that was pretty much the final. The final was 118 to 99. The Spurs are the second team in the West, and currently the Clippers are the 9th team in the West. So that is all that we had to show for the Spurs and the Clippers highlights. Now let's get to the one game last night that turned into a downright full-on demolition and a massacre. And I'm going to say that word again. It was a downright massacre in Oklahoma last night when it comes to the Lakers. The Lakers were down by 43 points at one point in this game. That's not a beatdown. That's a massacre in my book. I mean, the biggest blowout I've ever seen in NBA history was 64 points. And that was 8 years ago. That was 8 years ago. Now, this almost was the equivalent of that massacre that I saw 8 years ago. Now, we already know that the Lakers, they are deprived of a defensive presence. We already know that. And you could see when it comes to these statistics, everybody, and I do mean everybody that played for the Lakers last night, had a minus. A plus minus ratio. It was not good. It wasn't. Because look at this. LeBron had 13 points. Jake LaRivia had 6 points. DeAndre Ayton, he's a big presence down there, but he doesn't play. He doesn't play up to his name as far as a presence. And what I say about his name is, you're a center. You're over 7 foot. Can you at least not be a liability? Because DeAndre Ayton, he has been a liability for the Lakers all season. And I can tell you, I could show y'all a couple of plays where DeAndre Ayton, he is supposed to be guarding the paint and he is supposed to be guarding the basket. Now, the centers, they cannot stand in the paint because it'll be defensive 3 seconds. But for DeAndre Ayton to be around the basket, he doesn't affect the game like he needs to. And that's one thing that the Lakers have a problem with. And Luka got injured last night. Hamstring injury. Hopefully it is not nothing dire, because the Lakers, they need Luka just like Luka needs to play for the Lakers, because you don't want to be sitting down and all of a sudden your hamstring gets worse. Because I can tell y'all something about those type of injuries. When I was playing basketball, I tweaked my ankle. I sat down on it, and I mean that it started to swell. Now, one thing that I can say when it comes to fine tissue injuries like a hamstring or a tweaked ankle, it's best to keep playing on it. It's best to keep playing on it. Now, a lot of players throughout the history, I remember Kobe Bryant, he had the same problem. He had a tweaked ankle, ended up playing on it. Now his Achilles, he wasn't able to play on it, and that was pretty much a tough time right there. Seeing one of the greats go down and not being able to fight their way through pain and suffering, because those injuries, they give you a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of suffering, and the rehab process is downright strenuous and treacherous. Downright strenuous and treacherous. Now, for the Lakers bench production, you really ain't getting nothing from the bench production last night. Max Kleber, big old goose egg. Rui Hachimura, 4 points. Jared Vanderbilt, 9 points. Jackson Hayes, 12 points. Luke Kennard, 7 points. Bronny James, 10 points. You didn't get nothing from the bench production of the Lakers. OKC, odds-on favorite. According to every sports book in America and around the world, they are the betting favorite to win the NBA Finals, along with the San Antonio Spurs, Detroit Pistons, and also the Boston Celtics. But as far as the Oklahoma City Thunder, one thing I can say about the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm just ready for the playoffs. I'm ready to see what the Oklahoma City Thunder can do, because the regular season, we already know that the regular season, it was going to be a correlation of what the Thunder did from last season. They were just going to run through the West, run everybody out of their arena, which they are doing. And when we get to the playoffs, we are really going to see if the Thunder can defend their championship and go and try and get a repeat. But One thing I can say is Thunder, they did what they were supposed to do. As you all can see, the Thunder shot over 50% from the floor. They 3-point percentage was 45%. Lakers 23%. Offensive rebounds +5. Defensive rebounds +7. And when it comes to turnovers, 18 turnovers for the Lakers and 10 turnovers for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, one thing about it, you fast break points, advantage Thunder by 28. Also, points in the paint +14, advantage Thunder. The largest lead. This is what I was telling everybody. The largest lead in this game was 46 points. If I'm JJ Redick, now let me tell y'all something. I love JJ Redick as the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, there are some nights where it's just not your night. Now, if I was the head coach, I'm going to tell y'all something. I would be throwing out every traditional package that the NBA has to offer, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm the coach. I need to come up with something new, because it's okay to have old-fashioned plays, but in this time, the NBA is evolving, and we need to have new plays. We do. We need to have new plays. So when we get to the Lakers, as we all see, this is number 1 versus number 3 in the West, but it's downright. It was downright not even a competition. Now, I'm not. Well, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you all one highlight. Well, excuse me, possibly 3 highlights. Here's one highlight for the Lakers. Here is one highlight for the Thunder. There's one highlight for the Thunder. Here's another highlight for the Thunder. And that was basically it, America, for this game. It ended up being 139-96. And let's get to the last game on the docket that I have for this particular segment. The next segment I am going to do is the Final Four. Tomorrow, it's the Final Four. When we get to the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, we are a long way, and I do mean it's a long time from what the Cavaliers and the Warriors used to be. Back in the day, the Cavaliers and the Warriors used to be primetime television. They always used to make it to the NBA Finals every year, and it always used to be a doozy in the NBA Finals. Now we get to a point where it's pretty much an average matchup. Jared Allen had 16 points. Evan Mobley, 12 points. James Harden, 19 points. Donovan Mitchell, 25 points. Max Strus, 24 points. Bench production for the Cavaliers: Thomas Bryant, 3 points. Dennis Schroeder, 12 points. Sam Morelli, 3 points. Keon Ellis, 4 points. Everybody else did not play because of coach's decision. Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors starting 5. Draymond Green, 8 points. Guy Santos, 25 points. Kristaps Porzingis, 16 points. D'Anthony Melton, 5 points. Brandon Podziemski, 25 points. Bench production: Gary Payton II, 8 points. L.J. Cryer, 12 points. Pat Spencer, 12 points. And Will Richard had a big old goose egg. Everybody else on the Warriors did not play because of an injury or because of coach's decision. Now let me get to the Warriors. We don't know when Steph Curry is coming back this season, if he does come back this season. For the Cavaliers, they are in that same position that they were in last season. 21 games over 500. You have one of the best home courts in the NBA, and yet you still lose in the first round or the second round. Now, one thing that I can say is for the Cavaliers, if the playoffs started next week, which they start the week after, the Cavaliers would be facing the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks are no slouch. Atlanta Hawks, they don't call it the Dirty South for nothing, because the Atlanta Hawks, throughout this winning streak, they have made games look ugly, dirty, grimy, and they've kept the games close. And Atlanta, they have won close games. Their last 12 games that they won, the last 12 games that the Atlanta Hawks have won, 8 of them have been close games. And in 8 of those games that they've won, the Atlanta Hawks have been down by double digits multiple times in those games. So the Atlanta Hawks are no slouch. And what I believe for the NBA, this is good for the NBA, because you got 3 teams in the Dirty South. You got Atlanta, you got Orlando, and you got the Miami Heat, all in the playoff scenario, in the playoff conversation. The last time all 3 teams were in the playoff conversation, all 3 teams, last time all 3 teams, the Magic, the Heat, and the Hawks were in the playoff conversation was 2008. 2008. So now when we get to a point where as far as marketability and money, when it comes to the Deep South, the money is there but Miami, I'm going to tell y'all something. Miami is at a crossroads. Miami doesn't have the type of upper echelon charisma that it once had with Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh. Miami, they have been doing a whole lot of soul searching ever since Dwayne Wade retired. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something. Put my name in the hat, and I'm going to tell y'all that I will bring Miami back to dominance. Just give me a chance. Just let me come on as a walk-on, Miami. Let me come on as a walk-on, and I can tell y'all something. My stat line would be 25 points, 10 assists, and 12 rebounds. I'm going to give y'all a triple-double almost every night. I'm going to try and be a walking triple-double. Remember, Wilt Chamberlain was a walking triple-double. Also, Nikola Jokic is a walking triple-double. And I'm going to tell y'all, Keytime Sports, he is going to be a walking triple-double in the making. So, if that ever happens, I would be flattered, Miami. I don't live too far from Miami. I just don't. And I'm homegrown, state grown. I'm a Florida boy, and Miami is a good place. Miami is a good place. And one thing about this notion where it's hard to get stars to come to Miami, that is not that. Although that may be true right now, but let me tell y'all something. It's not hard for anybody to come to Miami. It's not hard to get a big-time superstar to come to Miami. Do y'all really know? I don't think people really know how big and luxurious Miami is. I think they think that since they see South Beach and they see all of those hotels, they think that's it of Miami. No, Miami, as with every state, every city, they have their good spots and their down spots. The Miami Heat, they had good spots, and now they are in a spot right now where they're not good, but they're not bad. They're just middle of the pack and decent. That's all I can say. Middle of the pack and decent. And with the Cavaliers, that's what I see. Middle of the pack and decent for the Golden State Warriors. They just downright, average to me. Golden State is just downright average. That's all. And before I get into first off, I'm going to show y'all some highlights of this game because it ended up being close throughout. Here's the first quarter. And then after these couple of plays of the first quarter, we get to the third quarter where the Warriors, they get it all the way back down to 5. Then we see the Warriors get it back down to 2. This was a very, very entertaining game. And I believe if Golden State had Steph Curry available, Golden State would have won this game. So we get to the fourth quarter, and that was pretty much good night Irene there. Because Golden State was down by 2. Golden State was down by 2. And then all of a sudden, a 3-point shot. They are up by 5. Golden State down by 3. Cleveland hits a 3-point shot, up by 6 with under a minute left. That was pretty much good night Irene. When we get to the last few seconds of this game, and Golden State, they needed a couple threes. Here is ball dominant vsCHA. He made a basket, and pretty much Cleveland, they pretty much just let the time just roll down, and they scored, and that was pretty much game 116 to 109, and now it was 118 to 111, and that was pretty much the game. And let's get to the current standings. The current standings, where everybody is currently constructed. This is what the East and the West looks like. And I'm going to show you all the playoff picture. This is the first time I'm showing y'all the playoff picture. Now, everybody is pretty much in the middle. Everybody is pretty much, sold up their playoff spot. You have the Nuggets and the Rockets currently constructed. They will be facing each other. The Cavaliers and the Hawks will be facing each other in the playoffs. The Lakers and the Timberwolves will be facing each other in the playoffs. The Knicks and the 76ers. Gosh, I did not see that coming a month and a half ago. But they will be playing each other. Now, when we get to the play-in tournaments, we have the Suns and Trailblazers. They will be playing each other. And for the Clippers and Warriors, they would be playing each other. The loser of 7 and 8 will play the winner of 9 and 10. And it goes for the same exact way in the Eastern Conference. So now, everything is pretty much set in stone. The play-in tournament starts in 11 days, April 14th through April 17th. And the playoffs start on Saturday, April 18th. And let me tell y'all something. This is the most interesting and downright entertaining time of the NBA, because you don't know who is going to be in the finals. We don't have a clear-cut favorite to make the finals. Obviously, one of the favorites is the overwhelming favorite is the Thunder, but we have to see it in order to believe it. And like those other phrases, I'll believe it when I see it. It remains to be seen, but as of right now, more than likely, the Thunder will make it to the Western Conference Finals first before making it to the NBA Finals. And with that, those are my reactions to last night's games in the NBA. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the key on millions.co. Here is my profile so that you will know it's me. Here is my merchandise. We just rolled out new merchandise last month, and here is the brand new merchandise. Here is our new logo, part of our rebrand. And here is my media feed so that you can look at all of my previous sound bites, segments, and other shows when it comes to NBA and March Madness. And I will be doing another segment on March Madness. We are at the Final Four. I will be doing that later on. The Final Four. So the the 4 teams that we have, I will mention that in my other segment. But as of right now, remember everybody, one last thing. The key is always on time.